Camby, welcome to the February 20th Camby City Council meeting. If you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you so much for this beautiful and wonderful community that we have here in Camby. Thank you for the leaders up here on the dais and here in the auditorium this evening and those at home. We ask for your blessing on our city, continued blessing on our city, and we ask for your guidance and your wisdom this evening as we take care of our city's business. We ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I have a proclamation this evening for the Iwo Jima Remembrance Day. Whereas on February 23rd, 1945, this country's armed forces were engaged in one of the most strategic and bloodiest battles of World War II, the Battle for Iwo Jima. And whereas the Camby Aurora Veterans of Foreign Wars Post and Auxiliary 6057 of the United States have deemed it fitting to erect a flagpole at the Camby Adult Center in remembrance of those who took part in this great battle. And whereas each year the members of the Camby Aurora Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 6057, their auxiliary, and their fellow veterans organizations and service organizations, i.e. Lewis and Clark Young Marines, Civil Air Patrol, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, JROTC, etc., conduct a ceremony to rededicate this memorial and replace the flags on the flagpole. And whereas the flagpole located at the Camby Adult Center is the only memorial in the city of Camby dedicated to our veterans who made such significant personal sacrifices during World War II in defense of this great nation. And whereas this year will be the 24th anniversary of the annual flag raising ceremony. Now, therefore, I, Brian Hodson, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Camby, do hereby proclaim February 23rd, 2019 as Iwo Jima Remembrance Day, and call upon all individuals, schools, churches, and organizations and businesses in the city of Camby to proudly remember the sacrifices made by servicemen and women who fought so gallantly in this bloody and decisive battle. I further call upon all members of this community to join in commemorating this great event with the rededication of the flagpole at the Adult Center on February 23rd at 10 o'clock to celebrate the 74th anniversary of the end of World War II. Given unto my hand this 20th day of February 2019 in the city of Camby, Oregon. And I think we have a few people here this evening.
Here again, as always.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you
very much.
There you are, sir. I'll photo off from the paper.
Okay.
Smile. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm allowed to do that.
it's not behaving. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to take a moment and give us the lowdown for Saturday?
Sure. So we do this every year for those of you.
Could you speak up close to the microphone?
Really? I'm really loud. Is that good?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So for those of you who have been down to our memorial, every year we rededicate it in remembrance of the lives lost at the Battle of Iwo Jima. Many of you may or may not know that was the single largest loss of life for the United States Marine Corps in its history. Camby is honored to actually have an Iwo Jima vet who is a resident here, has been for a long time. Howard couldn't be here tonight. He should be there on Saturday, but Howard was a landing craft operator at Iwo Jima. If I remember correctly, he made 6 trips from the ship to shore, if I'm not mistaken. And he left an eye there, right? Yeah, anyway. He says something like he kept keep an eye on the place is what it was. But anyway, so it's an honor to meet Howard. Bill Cole is also an Iwo Jima vet. He lives in Clackamas. He was also the founder of Redaway Trucking, which I'm sure that you may be familiar with. Due to his health, he may or may not be there. But once again, as always, we do this a couple times a year. We really appreciate Camby's support, the remembrance of what it takes to be a free country, and the patriotism that you show us. It means a lot to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, I'm
Yes.
Jeanne Horn. I am the treasurer of 6057 VFW Auxiliary, and I'm here with some flyers for everybody.
Perfect.
This explains that it is at the adult center, is where the raising of the Iwo Jima is.
Yeah, for those of you that have not attended this event, it's pretty emotional. It is a great ceremony. Breakfast or brunch usually follows, and the Adult Center does a great job of putting together a great breakfast of eggs, sausage, and Spam. I'll refrain from what they'll call it on Saturday, but those of you that-
SOS will
yeah, we'll call it
suffice.
SOS will work, yes. So if you can come down, it's a really moving piece, and I'm glad that we have that here in Canby. So thank you for being here, and I'm glad we can help out with that. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for doing this every year. I unfortunately am not going to be able to make it this year, and it's just breaking my heart because it's the first time in 8 years I'll have to miss this event. But I always love the event, and I appreciate all of you and everything that you do, and I appreciate your service to our country. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys. Next piece on the agenda this evening is the recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board on a splash pad location. And I think Mark Trebwasser from our chair for the Park Advisory Board is here. Hello, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Councilors. Tonight, we just would like to discuss briefly what we have gone through in trying to come up with a location for the splash pad. We started with the Park and Rec Board coming up with a list of possible locations and listing pros and cons for each location. And then 2 weeks ago, we had a public meeting, which was about 25, 30 people here. And we had a few lengthy presentations, but we had a lot of pros and cons that coincided with what we did. And then last night at our council meeting, we went through the list again and tried to filter it through some recommendations that other splash pads in the area of Malala, Oregon City, Sherwood, Tualatin. And with those recommendations, we filtered it all through, and then we decided that the one location that we think is most appropriate for a splash pad in the city would be Maple Street Park, and we strongly recommend that that would be the top consideration. We've considered Waite Park and Legacy Park, which are also, we're in contention, but we think that Waite Park has a stronger thing because of the space, the lack of shade, or some shade, but not excessive shade like at Waite Park. We think that if it was put into Waite Park, it would need to be an extensive revision of the park to fit it in. There would be trees removed, which we may think that that is an appropriate thing to redesign the entire park, but to locate the splash pad there, and then with the cons of no real parking area, just park on the street, the long travel time with people with coolers and other things that they bring with when they come to their kids, so their kids can play and they can sit someplace on a bench and chat and talk and watch their kids removed from traffic, and actually a fenced area in some cases, and so it's not, would be difficult for small kids to dash off and be in the street or someplace removed. And so all of those things when under consideration, we thought that Maple Street Park was the most appropriate place. We would hope that the council they have all of our pros and cons, and if you look at the list, Maple Street has 17 pros, 5 cons. The Waite was second with 9 and 7, Legacy 6 and 5. The other locations have more cons than positives, which are Locust Street and downtown, places that we probably we would have to purchase if we wanted to put something there. And they're not really appropriate places for a splash pad because there's no other amenities nearby. If you come up with a location that we think the next step would be, we would go to a design phase, getting more public input on what they want in a splash pad, how they want it designed. We have some feelings that it should be water to waste, or we can do water to recycle for irrigation versus a recycled system because of the expense and the maintenance involved with that. It requires a full-time person just to monitor the water quality like they do at the pool. So we're recommending that would be something that we would also consider in the design phase. And if there are any questions on that, I have a couple other comments from our meeting last night if you were so interested.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, any questions right now or?
No, go ahead.
Nope. Floor is yours, Mark.
The one that's going to come before you came from Camby Livability. They are trying to put in a drinking fountain and bottle filling station at the art park for the bike hub down there. And one of the recommendation or requirements of their agreement with the city, which is now several years old, was that they come to the Park and Rec Board and get an approval before they came to you. Our recommendation is that they move forward with a grant to install the drinking fountain there. It's a sizable, it's unbelievable when you start adding, we need a water line, we need a water meter, and SDC charges, and et cetera, that they are going after a grant, and they are only asking that the city would be willing to pick up to $21 a month in water fees or water usage fees. They would fully fund through grants and contributions the total installation. So they're also planning to put in an irrigation system. So I think that the Camby Livability will coming to you in the near future, but we have agreed with them that they think it's a valuable thing in promoting tourism. It's through the Clackamas Tourism Board. Two other things from last night's meeting. We had the dog park people that have had an agreement with the city 7 years ago. They said now we have maintenance and we're almost done with backlogged maintenance, and so they said, when are we going to get the dog park? And so they wanted to present that to us. At the same time, we also had the park supervisor for Molalla River and Champui and several other neighboring facilities there that came in and said they would even consider not putting in a dog park, but a fenced off-leash area versus the open loft-leashed area there. In cooperation with the city if they decided that. We were not sure that was the best thing. We've tabled it until we could get recommendations from the city council, because we need to know whether to consider that or say, no, we have the agreement with the people that signed the petition for the dog park that was approved, and say, no, this is what we're going to do, and move forward at some point in the future. Any questions about it was a lengthy meeting. It was actually pretty short. It was pretty contentious, and we had a lot of discussion.
Well, back to the splash pad piece. So, again, I guess not a reminder, but a refresher what brought this to the foreground was, again, part of that was looking at our parks piece and having conversation about moving forward with Parks Master Plan and wanting to work on what items we could take back to the Park Advisory Board to work on in the meantime. And Park Advisory came back with the splash pad being one of the first items that they wanted to address and work on. And so that's what the Park Advisory Board has been working on. And so I guess tonight before us is the legwork that they have done regarding the splash pad, location conversation and feedback from the community on that. So tonight, I guess we are in a position to either have some more dialogue about this tonight and give staff the next step of being what will be the next steps in moving forward. With us deciding on a location this evening, and then going forth with, do we want to move forward with next steps in that direction of one of the recommendations here or the recommendation from the Park Advisory Board, or does this group want to noodle this information and then I can add this to the agenda, which at this point will probably be the second agenda in March for us to make a decision and move forward on that. So I'll put it in your
I actually
hands.
do have some questions about the recommendation. So
Yes.
I marked a couple of points I just want some clarification on because
Okay.
I think this is on public, like on the website and people can see it. So I see that under Maple Street, just so I understand how you guys came to this conclusion, some of the things you marked were access as a pro.
Where was that, on which?
Under Maple Street, a pro is access. What does that mean?
It,
Fifth one down, just says access.
It just says access. So,
well, it's, there's several parking lots there. You can easily get to the park. It's not extensive. There's not distributed parking like the downtown location.
did you guys take into consideration at all what it would be like for someone that didn't live in that neighborhood trying to walk to that area?
We don't foresee most people walking to the splash pad. Maybe a couple close neighbors, but most of them are younger children. The typical age for a splash pad is 2 through 9. Most of those kids are not old enough to walk,
Right.
even across just several neighborhoods away, even within walking distance.
So what about families that don't have cars or don't drive?
What?
What about families that don't have cars or don't drive?
There's public transportation. with
That
the
gets
bus
to
stop.
Maple Street?
It gets close to Maple Street. It goes down a couple blocks away on Territorial.
There's a stop on Territorial?
There's a stop on Territorial.
I'm not sure, but I do know that Camby Area Transit is in the process
Okay.
of rerouting, and they are going to have some stationary routes in town, hopefully in the near future. And so that
yeah.
might be a consideration that they could include that in the route.
Sure. I'm not opposed to Maple Street, but I will just, I'll get to my concern about access later. I'll ask you your questions first. So
Okay.
cost effective was a point too. What was the metrics for it being cost effective?
The metrics for cost effective is that all the other amenities that are recommended for being adjacent to a splash pad are already in place at
Okay.
Maple Street. Wade Park has some of them, but not all of them.
Okay. And I see that safer is noted, but also setback from the street is noted. So what's the difference between safer and setback from the street? How are they different pros?
They're probably not a lot different. We just
Okay.
wrote down what people presented.
Sure. And then neighbors used to noise, how did you determine that?
They have been subjected to baseball, softball games, tournaments for many, many years. So they
Okay.
are
I just didn't,
adjacent to a park which has had a
I
tremendous
just
amount
didn't
of
see it marked
activity.
on any other parks. Would that also be true for the other parks?
Some of those it would be true. It'd probably be
Okay.
true for Maple Street, which has large activities, and they do get complaints about noise when we have large
The Wheat Park.
gatherings with
Right.
sound amplifications and music.
Sure. But Legacy and Wait Park and downtown, they all have events too, right? But that was the only one it was noted on. I was just wondering if there was something different about it.
These were the inputs that we got from both our council, our board, the advisory board, and from the public meeting.
Sure.
So
And then water pressure?
the water pressure at Maple Street is better than most of the
Okay.
other parks.
I didn't know that. That's why I was asking. I didn't know
It has
that.
a bigger system because it has bigger acreage.
Okay.
And so it has to have a bigger system to water everything that it needs to water.
Is it, okay, so it has a bigger system because it has more acreage, but is it
It's
higher,
adequate.
proportionately higher, or is it just higher
I think
at a
that-
base level?
I don't know the specifics, but
Okay.
Jeff mentioned that the meter or the distribution pipe is a bigger meter.
Right. So is that because it has a bigger acreage or because it can handle more? Which is, I guess
It
my
handles
question
more
is
because
like,
it needs to handle more because of the bigger acreage.
sure. But does that mean that the water pressure proportionately is larger there, or is it?
It means that there would be more water, so the pressure would be higher, although we would probably go with low-pressure nozzles because it would
Okay.
use less water. But there is plenty of water at Maple Street.
Okay.
So is that to
Where
say
some of the
that,
other parks have limited water.
Sure.
Okay.
But I guess what my question is it that they have limited, it really is about proportionality. Does it have higher water pressure because it's bigger or because it has higher water pressure? Like it may sound like a nuanced argument, but if we're talking about putting a splash pad in, is the water pressure higher proportionately? Like it's higher because it's a bigger park, or it's higher than the same size, than any other park would be if it was the same size? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, the water volumes are higher, and that's the critical element.
Yeah.
Because the Maple Street Park has the largest water meter, and that is the measure that Camby Utility uses in determining water quantities that are available at each of their distribution sites, which means that Maple Street Park has the capability and the capacity to serve more either through irrigation or through a splash pad than in proportion than the other parks that were being considered.
So proportionally it's higher. It's not just higher because the park's bigger, which was my question. Is
Well,
it like,
the
It can
the
handle.
volumes are higher because the park is bigger and
Right.
it's irrigated, which requires greater water usage, and that's why the
Okay.
larger meter.
that makes sense to me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
so the simple question for me, if we were to put it in a different park, we would have to change the meter?
It would depend on the park and the meter that's in it, and I don't have enough information to provide that.
But there's a
to
potential
you.
of having to change that?
There is a potential.
Okay, thank you.
I honestly don't know if Wade Park has irrigation. I don't know if there's irrigation still in place there.
I believe that there certainly is water that
There's
is,
water there.
it's served, but I don't know that it's a sophisticated irrigation system.
I don't think there's a surface irrigation
Yeah.
system in
And
West End.
it probably uses
Because of
a
all the
smaller
trees and
meter,
stuff.
which again is the measurement that would be used.
Any other questions at this point for Mark or discussion tonight? What is the flavor of the council? I mean,
I'd like to make a decision soon, so we don't keep putting it off month after month.
I agree.
So,
It seems like
mean,
we're talking it to death.
Yeah, let's just decide, so we don't have any more questions for Mark?
I don't.
Okay.
I mean,
We would like the answer sooner than later so we could begin, if it's
Yeah.
approved, and say, move forward to go to the design phase, because we still would like to see something put in place this summer. So at least before, July or something at the latest, so that they have some use this year and people could say, yes, there's something really happening with the park maintenance fee. Even though it's not really park maintenance fee, the public will equate, hey,
Perception.
the park is putting in new amenities and we're paying this $5. It's a good thing.
well, I will say this, Mark, I appreciate, I know you've just stepped in as chair here recently, but I appreciate your leadership with the Park Advisory Board and coming before us now. I think this is your third or fourth time in front of us with park stuff, and I appreciate the active role that's occurring at our Parks Board, and so.
We appreciate it also because we are actually moving forward. There's been about a 6 or 7 year period where we went to meetings and we said, well, let's just get updates on what's not happening.
Well, yeah, it's nice to be in a position where there's.
There's actually some activity, and
Yes.
it's building on itself. That's
Yeah.
with people coming from the dog park. And
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, I think the Parks Board has done a lot of talking about this amongst themselves. They did their due diligence in doing a public input session. The metrics before us show the public input as well as their input. And to me, it seems, we've had a lot of discussion about whether it should be downtown or an outlying park, but to me, it seems that the clear choice here is Maple Street Park, so I recommend that my colleagues vote to put it at Maple Street.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy with the recommendation also. I mean, Yeah, there's cons to every location for sure, but I think that this one, yeah, it's equipped, it's got amenities.
Maple Street is a city park, but it's more, it's sort of like the crown jewel. It's the biggest one, and I think it does more than just a little neighborhood park. It's used by people from all across the city more than the other parks are, with the exception of Wade Park with all of the, 4th of July celebrations and all the other activities that are there, but they're not true. Okay, we're going to go out there, we're going to play ball, or we're going to have a picnic or something. A little bit happens at Maple Street or at Wade Park, or much less at Wade Park than it does at Maple Street.
Although Legacy gets a lot of kids playing. Legacy Park is really well used for sure too. It's just not ideal, unfortunately, because of the lack of parking. But Legacy would be great, but the con is so great, I think.
Does anyone know the parking difference between Legacy and Maple Street? I'm not as familiar with Maple Street because I live on the other side of town.
They counted spots, I know, but I don't know if
Do you remember,
has
Mark?
that.
The difference in parking versus Legacy versus Maple?
Maple Street has, I don't know the total number. There's 2 parking areas that can handle 30 or 40 cars at least, maybe 50.
It's at least 4 times bigger than Legacy.
Is it?
It's really big, and Legacy, I think, has 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's very, very narrow, and the park is narrow and very long. And so siting it there would be, well, we can't put it in the middle. We don't want to put it right next to the street, so it would be some issues with that.
Are we moving to our discussion? Or
Yeah, we're in our discussion, absolutely. Again,
sounds like we want to move towards a decision this evening. So again, that's.
I like the multiple amenities that are at Maple Street Park and the different option. And my kids enjoy going to splash pads, but they do get bored of those after a while, and would love to go play a little bit and then go back to the splash pad for a little bit longer. So I do like that there's multiple options at Maple Street. Obviously, I live 3 blocks away from Legacy Park, so I would have loved that be the perfect option. But yeah, I think Maple Street is a great option for it. So I'd be in favor of Maple Street.
Okay.
I would, Mr. Mayor, it's no secret that my preference would be for it to be downtown because I think that splash pads have a unique economic development potential because we'll probably only have one of them in our community. And if we can put one somewhere, I would prefer people become accustomed to coming downtown. I think that's important for us keeping our small town character and getting people engaged in our community. That being said, I think it's a net win to get a splash pad, so I'm not looking to sabotage or obstruct a splash pad just because it's not in my preferred location. But I do want to make an important point about how we determine where parks go. And this is maybe unique to splash pads because we'll have multiple playgrounds in our community. Right, so regardless of where you live, there will be a playground somewhere near to you. But I'm not sure it's part of our decision-making metrics and equity lens, and I think it's important because as much as people would like to say that Maple Street Park is easy to get to, I don't actually believe it is, and this is why. Because I think that there is a perspective that everyone drives, but I would say for most middle-class families, for most of the families that live in Camby, there's not always an adult home in the summer. And maybe you have a 15-year-old sibling watching a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. That's what my family was like. I think that's what a lot of families are like. That 15-year-old can't drive someone to Maple Street Park. And I will tell you, as someone that lives on the south side of town, I would not be comfortable with my kids, none of which currently drive, walking my youngest child to Maple Street Park. There aren't sidewalks between Ivy and Maple Street. It's not a safe path for someone that doesn't drive. So I think that we haven't applied an equity lens because we're presuming that because the primary age of users is 9 and under, that means someone that's driving is going with them. And I don't think that's universally true. And it disappoints me that we'll be putting a splash pad somewhere that is not accessible to our most at-risk families and middle-class families that don't have an adult home during the summer in the middle of the day. I'm not going to obstruct it from happening. I'm not going to stop it from happening. I think it's a net win to get it. But I hope that in the future we apply that lens to not just presume that people are going to drive there because it's drivable, because I don't think that's realistic for a lot of people. And I think that this choice makes this park inaccessible to members of our community that should have equal access to parks. So I think it's a net win for the community to get it, but I don't think that we've applied every lens necessary to determine if it's the best location. And so that's a little bit disappointing to me, but I still think it's a net win, and I think we can talk ourselves out of a park anywhere. So I'll support it. But I hope in the future that we don't presume that people can drive anywhere. If we're gonna have one of these in our community, I hope it's accessible to families that don't have cars and families who have older children watching younger children in the summer, because I don't think this splash pad is accessible to them.
Although the Camby Area Transit, the idea of the circulating route, we don't have one currently.
Right.
In a matter of time, that will happen, so that will be
And
fantastic.
yeah, and I talked to Julie, and I think even when we have them, it won't run frequently enough to make this park as accessible as we would like it to be to those
Not
families.
ideal, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
and
maybe
so.
Baby steps.
Yeah, I understand it's
steps.
baby steps, and that's why I'm going to support it. I just want to throw it out there that we've presumed that everyone's driving there when I don't think that's the case. And I think it's unfortunate that we're not giving equal access to people that don't drive or can't drive.
We
as
can
we are to everyone
monitor it
else.
over time, though, too, Sarah, like, look at it a year or two and go out and take an informal
Sure.
survey of folks.
And then
like,
what?
how did you get here? No, to see
Right.
for future placement, because you're concerned about the equity lens. We could
Right.
ask people, like, how
But
did
I
you get here? Was
think
this a
in my
barrier?
lifetime we'll have one splash pad in Canby.
I don't know, it's a good
So,
question. Depends
we'll
on how
see.
fast we grow, I guess.
We'll see. We have a lot of park needs, and I wouldn't put multiple splash pads at the top of the list based on our community input. For the foreseeable future, there's a generation of people in Canby that this park will be inaccessible to. And it will probably be the only one in the reusable lifetime that exists. And I think it's important that we note that. That's all.
No, I agree.
Lack of sidewalks should be addressed because the city is planning to put sidewalks on Maple Street.
But not on 10th. 10th is actually my concern. So if you're walking from this side, from the south side of town, and you're walking over, you have to come either down Pine or down Ivy, and you can't get to Maple on sidewalks. Even if Maple gets sidewalks, you can't do that.
Wouldn't some of the people on the north side have the same issue going to one on the south side of town or
Sure.
even to downtown?
No,
It's-
not as much to downtown. It's more accessible. It's at least more centrally located. And I'm not saying that, I definitely said that I don't think any location is perfect, but I just think it's important that we note that there's an equity issue with this location.
And 10th, you're right, there aren't sidewalks, although the north side of 10th is wider. I mean, when I've like biked or taken my kids, you know, it is like, there's no sidewalk, but it is wider if you
Right.
think about 10th. So if you're walking
Well,
on the others, you know, that side.
For sure, but I've been the chaperone on the third grade field trip that goes all over Canby.
Right.
And I have walked a group of third graders down that street. It is hairy. Like there's no defined path for them to go, or bike riding, whatever. And I'm not saying it's a bad location for the park. There are benefits to doing it, but I think that we'd be kidding ourselves if we didn't acknowledge that there's a lack of equity.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Other comments, thoughts, please?
Good with Maple.
Again, like I said, Mark, I appreciate that hard work that the Park Advisory Board has done, and for me, you know, very rarely do I get much say unless it's a tiebreaker situation. For me, Wade Park has always been my first choice, because for me, it checks off a multitude of boxes for what it can do for, we look at our downtown and trying to, again, continue to enhance that and the things that we can do. We're looking at an active water feature, splash pad, whatever you want to call it, being used maybe June, maybe May. We'll give Oregon the benefit of the doubt. We'll say May to, so September, maybe 4 months there. What we could do with it in the off season downtown, I think is something that is of a value to downtown in terms of the things that can be done with it. And I think it just adds to the downtown piece. That's why I liked Wade Park and still like Wade Park as an option, and still think that I think it's to Councilor Spoon's point about being centrally located and accessible. I agree with that aspect of it. So that's my 2 cents on that aspect of it. But I'm seeing, or it sounds like Maple Street seems to be what's the desire, that's the desire of the council to move forward with.
Yeah, and maybe maybe it's some sort of a compromise, some sort of other fountain in the future. It's not necessarily, I think there is further potential for Waite Park to make it more of a magnet, maybe, something that you guys are looking for, something artistic, creative, et cetera, but maybe not for this use, not for the splash pad. Yeah.
Can I ask a question to council related to this?
Yeah.
I see that in general comments, there's a note to not purchase property. Is the feeling that we aren't interested in purchasing property for parks? Splash pad aside, here or there, for a splash pad, not for a splash pad. What's the consensus on council on moving away from letting developers give us property and making the jump to purchasing strategic property?
I think it's a good.
I just see it noted here, and so I want to get a sense of.
Well, I think we're getting into a potential policy question here, and I don't know if that necessarily is on the topic of this piece. I
think it's related because I think a number of us have talked about purchasing property for it in some capacity or another, but it just hasn't come up in conversation yet. So, but I see it noted here that the general comment is to not purchase property. So I guess I'm a little bit confused because I thought we were moving away from developer donated property, but then I see this comment that we're not interested in purchasing property.
Well, I think it's the not purchasing property in regards to the splash pads.
Why would it be that specifically?
And was this a council comment, or was this from the public hearing, the public input?
It was from both. If you wanted to purchase property, one of the ones that was suggested was by tie ditch. There's no way you could put the other amenities, the picnic area, the covered shade, in addition to the splash pad, play equipment, so when kids get cold or tired, especially if they're 4, 5, 6 years old, they do it for an hour, 20, 30 minutes. They want to go over and go on the slide or the swing and then go back. And I have granddaughters, and that's exactly what they do. And they're only 3 years old, and they, 15 minutes playing in the water, oh, that's enough. Oh, we want to go over here, but we don't want to leave. We want to go back, but let's go over here and swing for a little bit, or let's go down the slide. We can't do that in the downtown location. There's just not area. If you put it in Waite Park, yes, there would have to be some major revisions of the park. You would need to remove trees, and we've been down that road. There's a lot of people are adverse to removing trees, even though the park's only been there since 1972. I wasn't aware of that because I wasn't here in '72, but it was pointed out last night that Waite Park was dedicated in 1972, and those trees were small, and it was,
baseball
cement
fields.
sidewalks, and
Those
the
baseball
trees have
fields.
grown,
Baseball fields,
which is what they
and
do. And as a forester, I know that they grow. But at some point, some of them are going to have to be removed so that there is room for something other than shade and leaves.
Sir, to your question, I think as a development piece, I know that we'd had conversation about that. I think in general development, it was trying to be more strategic on a situation with developers giving land in lieu of SDCs, that we were trying to shy away from that piece. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't purchase land at some point for a park or work with a developer if, in a developmental situation. That was my understanding of our conversation back when we had that first conversation.
Sure. I guess I heard at the public meeting a counselor say that we wouldn't be purchasing land for parks, and so I guess I'm left a little confused about whether or not we find parks to be an investment or not, because I think it's interesting that we're talking about how cost effective this particular park is, but we're also talking about potentially spending millions on another park, and I'm just not sure, I guess I really understand what our decision-making metrics is on how we decide why cost effectiveness is important or not important. I guess I'm just looking at the pros and cons list, and I'm like, okay, access. Well, I think access is true of a lot of the parks that it wasn't noted for. Safety, true of a lot of the parks it wasn't noted for. Cost effectiveness, is that something we value in a park or not? Because I think we have some questions coming up where that might be a different question. And I guess, so I'm looking at these pros and cons, and I'm trying to determine which ones are pros and cons for this park specifically because people care or don't care about it, and which ones are pros and cons for parks in general. Because I think we're going to be coming up against a lot of questions, and I'm not sure this pro-cons list, if we applied it to other parks, you guys would see as much value in.
It's
So I'm
specifically
just trying to
for
figure
this.
out.
I think, Sarah, it's specifically for the splash pad.
Right.
providing- I think
But
it's
why is
key.
my question.
Well, the infrastructure, I do agree with
Sure.
what Mark said. Like, we would spend, I don't know how many tens of thousands to provide extra, new
Sure.
infrastructure if we buy. So that seems like kind of low-hanging fruit, like, hey, we've got a park that's ready to go, ready to receive a splash pad, let's do it. It seems like a simple.
Well, and then if
So
we
in
spend
the
all of the money that we
decision.
have to buy a land for a splash pad, if we already have land that we can put it on, and this is just my thought process on it, is then we no longer have money to do other
Right.
Sure.
options as well. So if we have somewhere like Maple Street that will accept the splash pad, that's a really good option for it, why would we go and buy land that we don't necessarily need?
So it's really an issue of values, which I understand because I think economic development is a reason you would buy land that you wouldn't. However, I guess I'm looking at this and cost effectiveness seems to be important or of value to a lot of us. But in a couple months, when we're looking at other park proposals, is cost effectiveness going to be important?
Yeah.
Well, I would imagine it would be. I look at this pro and con list to be towards this splash pad, and the cost effectiveness comes from the fact we have a park that's already ready, like you said, to receive a splash pad. In general, if the in general question you're asking is, do I think we should take SDC money or part land trade? I think we should not have the developers tell us what land we get.
Right.
In
That's always
future
been mine.
developments. But as
Right.
far as planning a park that's already going on, I look at this chart to be for this particular project.
So in the future, if we have land that could be used to build, say, sports fields, but then we're looking at spending a whole bunch of money on other sports fields, are we going to care as much about cost effectiveness?
I guess I don't understand completely what you're asking.
I mean, we're talking about potentially looking at investing $1 million+ in another project for land we don't own, for sports fields, which in theory we have land to put sports fields on. Are we going to apply the same value system to that park that we do to this park? Is what I'm asking. If we're looking at a pros and cons list,
Yeah.
I'm just asking like what our decision-making process is as a body, because I think that we should have some sort of consistency in how we make decisions. So, I mean, I'm asking a pretty clear question, and I'm not against the Ackerman project, but are we going to apply the same pro-con list to the Ackerman project where we don't own the land as we are to this project, or like?
The values might be a little different there. It's like,
I see.
right, I think maybe it's, do we want one park, one huge sports complex, or do we want 5 other or 4 or whatever? I mean, so I still think cost is going to be a factor, but I think it's going to look a little bit different. Like, yeah. And so we'll have the community input and we'll go through.
Sure.
And I appreciate the question too, because you're calling it out in the open, like, hey,
Yeah,
what do we
we have a
value
moving
here?
target with parks, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
And that's, I think, okay. I mean, I don't think that we need to be like totally locked into one mindset, but kind of flex with, the space and
What the project is.
other factors, I guess. So,
So do we take into account how many people are going to use a park? Like, what are our other factors that we're taking into account to determine whether or not something's cost effective?
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate this line of questioning, but are we getting off topic? And this is
I-
seems like a more global conversation that maybe we need to have a work session on.
yeah.
Maybe we need to have a work session on it, which I'll be open to, but I do think that you're asking us to make a decision tonight, and I feel like you're asking me to make a decision based on a pro-con list, and I'm not sure really, I'm just not sure.
That's
Yeah.
not what I asked tonight.
Okay.
I asked tonight if you as this body, wanted to make a decision on this recommendation, or noodle it and come back at a later date. That was the options I put on the table. And so the conversation has gone towards making a decision this evening, and so that was what was put on. I'm fine either way on what this group wants to do in terms of how we want to move through this process. That's my charge here tonight. I mean,
But we don't have a budget yet for this, right? Like, we don't have anything, so the
No, 'cause
motion would be to pursue,
Design phase, right?
well,
Design
tonight
phase.
is to decide on,
Location.
are we moving forward with a splash pad at one of these recommended locations from our advisory board? And if so, then that would be up to staff and whatnot to figure out what those next steps would look like in terms of, and then bringing that back to us, So there's still a whole lot of steps to come after this decision piece. So, I mean, if I'm hearing now,
I'm comfortable,
a metrics to conversation.
I'm comfortable, but
or
I feel like we probably should have a work session to talk about how we're making decisions about parks, because I'm not sure I understand what our objective is, to be frank, as a body.
Just ask one question. In your viewpoint, how far would a 9-year-old bring his younger children that he's
It wouldn't be my-
supervising? How far would he walk?
It wouldn't be my 9-year-old bringing
Or
siblings?
15-year-old,
Sure.
15-year-old bringing, how far would they walk?
I mean, I have 4 kids. I'm telling you, it depends on the kid, because they're all incredibly different people.
That's true,
But-
but in a typical, in your opinion, how far would they walk?
I don't
Would they
have-
walk 5 miles, 7 miles, 2 miles, 1 mile?
It's not really about how
Half a
far they
mile.
walk as much as is it as accessible to citizens from one corner of the city to other corners of the city? Because we're all paying property taxes, we're all paying into the park system, we're all whatever. Why would we make a park? And to be honest, it's not personal for me, because all of my kids are probably too old to use a splash pad. Let me make it clear. None of my kids are probably using the splash pad ever. I just want to make sure that my job is to make sure every family in Canby is equally represented. And I'm not sure this park is accessible.
I think no matter
To
where
everyone.
matter where we put it, we're going to have people in Canby that are not accessible to it. So
For
I don't-
sure.
And I understand where you're coming from. I totally get it. I just don't think there's nothing
There's no
that's
perfect
perfect.
place.
There's no perfect place, and so, like you said earlier, it's a net win to get a splash pad.
Yep.
And so would it be cool to have it downtown? Absolutely. I personally don't want to buy land if we have land that we can put it on. That doesn't mean I wouldn't want to buy land for a sports complex or at some different type of park in the future. I personally don't see it being beneficial for us to purchase land to do this when we can put it at any of these places already. So
Sure.
I just think it's a net
I
win to
think-
get it, and no matter where we put it, it's going to be inaccessible to some people.
Yeah, I don't want you to mistake me. I very much
where's
said
the-
it was a net win. I'm just trying to figure out, do we have a process? Do we even know what our objective is at this point? Because we've been talking about parks so long. I'm not sure I understand what, as a governing body, what's our goal?
Can we have that
And so I want to have a work
conversation,
session.
yeah, some
That's
other
what I was saying.
time,
Can we have a
so-
work session to talk
Yeah,
about
let's
that?
make the decision
So
now
do we
for the
want to
parking
make
fund.
this decision?
Yeah, I said I was comfortable doing it, but I had
Okay,
questions,
yeah.
follow-up questions.
Yeah.
I think we need a work session to figure out what our goal
Parks
is.
in general versus
Yeah.
not just for this.
We didn't have our goal setting session this year, so I just want to make sure that we're on the same page if we're going to be doing this over and over.
You don't need a motion or anything
Counselor,
formal. Do you?
Counselor Parker, you've been silent, and Counselor Dale?
Councilor Gus on Maple Street.
Yes, I'm okay. There is no perfect location. 99E and the railroad are formidable safety barriers. There's lots of people on the south side that will consider a location on the north side inaccessible because they
Even
will not
downtown.
allow their children to
Right.
cross, and vice versa. So I think the emotional favorite of the council and probably staff and the Parks Board has been around Waite Park. It's always been kind of the living room, as we call it, or at least some downtown location. But we've not seen that passion be able to overcome the physical and developmental barriers that have been identified. And so that takes Waite Park off the list. I wish it could be there. I'm not opposed to taking down trees if necessary. We know that we have some issues there. Yeah, I know my email box will blow up after that, for the greater good of the splash pad. But I am not hearing any passion out of the Parks Board that that's an achievable goal or worthy of achievement greater than their recommendation for Maple Street. I like Legacy too, but there's absolutely no parking, especially on the weekends.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
So, that's where I am on it, of all the choices. If you want to make a decision tonight to direct staff in the Parks Board, then Maple's a good way to go. If we really, really, really want it downtown or in Wake Park, then we need to be fair and give them that direction and realize that there are going to be cost and time drivers to that.
There's cost and time drivers to both.
There are.
And that's to Sarah's or Counselor Spoon's point. This is a one-shot,
Realistically, it's a
one-shot deal, at this. And, the consultant that was here the night of the community meeting and talking with council members in Sandy who put in a splash pad, or active water feature, both of them had stated that the best place for something like this is not in a park on the outskirts of town, but in your downtown, where there's other pieces and other businesses that can benefit from them. It's considered an amenity, but it's
a driver.
it is a driver. I'm going to, pardon my small scope of reference. I spent 20 years working at Starbucks, and whenever Starbucks acted like a big box store wherever they went, a 1,700 square foot footprint acted like a big box store because it was a draw to that shopping center. I really view the splash pad piece here as a major draw, and that's my 2 cents. I don't have a vote, but by the time we're done, maybe my 10-year-old, well, my 13-year-old will use it. I might.
I would support putting it in Waite Park if there was enough support on council to do that.
Those are my lobbying points. Councilor Parker, anything? Nothing?
Well, I wasn't going to say anything tonight. I mean, I can support this. It's not where I'd like it to be. And it's, we're putting a park amenity in a part of the town that already has a park amenity. Meanwhile, we've got a section of town that is the most underserved. We've got Locust Street Park, and that's about it over there. And in terms of those with socio and economic challenges in our community, I don't see us doing anything to address the park needs of what our census tract tells us has the highest concentration of people who could utilize a free public park. So, and I don't see people walking over there, and they may not have cars and all of that sort of thing. But politics is the policy of the practical, and I see this as being practical, so I don't object.
Just as a matter of Councilor Spoon, something?
No, I guess I feel like there's enough people that are interested in it being at Waite Park and some people that are interested in Maple Street Park, and I guess I'm not really sure where we are in terms of interest. I would like to move forward, like for sure. I don't want to carry this on for another month, another whatever, but I guess we haven't had much offline talk about where it should go at this point, and is there a motion for Maple Street now? Is that where we're at?
I need to.
Okay.
To Joe, is it a motion piece or a consensus?
I would envision it being a consensus piece, but I mean, it came across as a motion from.
I didn't actually say I moved. I said I recommend.
Yeah. So I mean,
so do I need to
she's asking you to entertain something specific. If there's competing, I mean, nothing was seconded either.
That's right.
And you guys
Right.
just started in on kind of a random discussion. So as far as like
if you'd like.
parliamentary rules, you're just in the midst of a discussion. If you want to make a motion, you can, but also this could be something staff could use consensus and go and do the design phase up too. It just sounds like there's still, I don't know if it would be helpful to hear what your number one is versus your number two, because if there is this idea, there seems to be grumblings that everybody here kind of is like this, thinking Waite Park. So,
well, and having been on those,
was Maple and Waite.
Right, Maple Street was number one, and from the Park Advisory Board,
Waite was number two.
Waite was number two. So that's kind of been
If Waite Park became, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If Waite Park became kind of if that became our consensus tonight, would there be delays in getting it online because of all of the extra work that needs to happen? Would that prevent us from getting it online this year?
The other thing we could do is we could go through the design phase and say, if we put it here, what's the cost? What other things would have to happen? There's some things that are happening at Maple already for maintenance that would dovetail with it, changing the tennis courts to a multi-use court, the thoughts is turning it into tennis, pickleball, and basketball. And so if you take a basketball court and use it for a splash pad is one of the options, but there's also the Marshall property. There's other locations at Maple. There's not just one
Right,
place.
there's additional
At
lots there.
Wade Park, you're somewhat restricted. I'm not sure where you would actually site it. You don't want to put it behind the gazebo. Are you going to take out one of the play areas? You would have to make some decisions as to how you were going to fit it into that footprint that still would have the ability. You can't stick it in a place where basically everybody meets for General Camby Days or the Jazz Festival or all the other things that take place there.
So we don't really know until we do the design phase. If we go to Wade Park, we wouldn't know if we could get it online this year. But at Maple Street, we're sure we could get it online this year.
I thought we weren't sure. I don't think, I was under the impression.
I don't know, but timeline is,
on either
I
location.
appreciate, Chair Truebosser's enthusiasm and desire to try to get it done in the next 4 months.
I like his optimism.
Yes, optimism is good and energy is good. I don't know that.
Well, as a practical matter, it will not be ready this year.
The wheels of
You're going to have to
government
solicit proposals for the design phase of the project. Once that's completed and public input is received, then you have to seek bids for construction of the project. That takes a period of time. Once the bids are received, tallied and awarded, then you're going to have a mobilization period. The mobilization period is going to start with demolition. You're going to also have to determine the degree to which the existing infrastructure can support the project. I just don't see it as any way feasible to have it available to the public this year and do an appropriate job and provide for an opportunity for public input.
No matter where.
In either location. And I do also think that it would be short-sighted to think that you can design a park, a splash pad that can just be moved to either location. I think that you're going to be limited on your design and the quality and the type of design that you develop based on the location. If
you design for both places, they're totally different designs.
Exactly.
You would have to do two designs and say, here are the two options.
So you've doubled your cost.
Can I ask you, Rick, what is the cost associated with that? If we wanted concrete information to work with, where we know the budget, the design, the way it would change the landscape of the park, what would it cost to do a design phase for one park versus two parks if we wanted more information? And I'm not saying we do that because I have no idea. This is a theoretical question.
I don't know. What we would do, we would develop a request for proposals, we would issue it, and we would get, and we could do it in phases. You could probably get preliminary engineering for two facilities for something under $50,000, I would think.
Versus one, which you think would cost about?
Well, if you're doing one, then you're not doing just a preliminary design phase. You're actually issuing the full contract for the entire project with a specific target in mind. The outcome will be arrived at sooner, and you'll be saving money because you won't be juggling multiple priorities, and probably will have fewer community meetings necessary because you'll be addressing just one physical location.
Mr. Mayor, for the sake of clarity and a definitive decision tonight from this board, I actually make a motion that we direct staff to move to the design phase for a splash pad at Maple Street Park.
Second, if we're going to do part of it.
Okay, motion has been made by Councilor Hensley, seconded by Councilor Height to move forward with directing the next steps for splash pad at Maple Street Park. Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. The staff has its direction there, so it's 6-0 to go with Maple Street Park. Okay. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Moving to communications this evening. Okay, thank you, sir.
First opportunity for citizen input and community announcements this evening. This is the opportunity for audience members to address the City Council on items that are not on the agenda. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. Please fill out a yellow comment card like these, and you'll get your opportunity to come up. Please sit at the table, speak directly into the microphone so that the auditorium can hear you and the viewing audience at home. If it's something that we can address tonight, we will do so. If not, we will look at it and discuss and see what we bring back at another time. First is Roger Myers regarding quiet zones. Did Roger not stay? Okay.
A couple folks did.
I did see some people leave, so.
We talked to them.
Okay. Patty Green regarding Walnut. Ms. Green, hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I brought you back some maps.
Good.
Pass them around.
Thank you for the visual
So that
aids.
you would know what I was talking
Okay.
about when I was talking about Walnut. And I see later, my name is Patty Green. I live at 2392 Southeast First Avenue. And we talked about Walnut and the trucking. So you can see my property there. And where the Shakespeare, now we can call it what it's called, but Shakespeare project, that the planning committee decided where they would enter and exit at my front door. The pink line is where they should be going, which is the Sequoia Parkway that you built for the industrial parkway. The little red arrows that go back and forth, that's my driveway that you're going to put 840 trucks if you let this go through, and them not put their entrance and exit at the back of the property down at the other end of Walnut that comes right out on Sequoia. Simple, easy. So I see on the thing, or the resolution ordinance, you're talking about this Camby's first stoplight. Well, the planning committee has shut down First Avenue. That is the blue, where you see blue. No trucks. Nobody's allowed, so why would you put a stoplight in when there's not going to be any traffic or trucks going through there? Because you haven't fixed First Avenue, which actually I've seen a map and I didn't have a time, and I'm sorry I look like this. I got stuck in traffic from I-5 all the way to Aurora.
A lot of people.
Anybody else do that?
Common theme.
How many times this week since they shut down I-5? So my husband's like, you can't go. I'm sorry, but
You're
I work.
fine.
I'm mixing concrete all day and stuff. So, but you're
I
talking
wish I could
about.
wear jeans and.
I'm sorry, I did. I cleaned up last week, but then I was so busy I ran out and I didn't get a chance to hand out. And I appreciate the phone call back very much. But I think it's something we need to look at because you're talking about a lot of money here for this stoplight that. If the trucks and stuff can't go through there, I mean, you can, the ones right around there, the businesses, they're not all day. I go through there all the time. I never have a problem getting out. Now, you put too much in Fred Meyer's, you cram pack that full of businesses, so nobody's got anywhere to park there. And the semis that come through Camby, have you seen where they're parking now? To run into fast food, they're parking on the side of the freeways. They're parking on the middle of Hazeldale. That's always filled with trucks because they got nowhere to park to run over to Fred Meyer's to get something to eat. So these 1,000 trucks we're going to be sending through, they're not going to stop in Camby. They're not going to spend their money here. They don't have anywhere to park. And it's going to make it, until something's, I mean, there's no way in Camby, there's no way out. And y'all, just like me, I've been working in Salem and I got it back and forth, so it's something to think about before you spend a lot of money on this stoplight that you should be fixing the road.
So, no, and so, Patty, I do appreciate you continuing to come back and ask the questions, and I know I'm giving somewhat the same answer as I gave last time in that, it goes through the planning commission and they've approved it. Now, they're, I believe Joe and Rick, I mean, there's still the design piece to the building, that's been settled as well.
Yeah, so, in terms of truck access and whatnot, right now, if that's not a possibility for them to use First Avenue, then that's up to that, whoever the tenant is going to be for Shakespeare, then that'll be up to them to figure out where that's going to go.
But if you notice on the map where they told them they could go is out of their complex, a U-turn down Walnut, my 2 driveways are right there. Their trucks come down Walnut and turn into that. That's going to be every 2 minutes in front of my piece of property. That's what I don't understand. How can they, when they have the whole other end, they bought the entire piece, they keep changing how big this building is going to be. So they got the whole other end to put up their building that they can access who comes and goes, because that's what they want to do. But there's no way, I talked to Kenneth at Clackamas. He said there's no way they can make that turn out of that driveway, since the planning committee and Brian Brown said that they can only be 7 feet from Walnut. How is that possible? How can their driveway be 7 feet when it's 200 feet it's supposed to be? So then they took it down to 150, and the last one I heard was 7 feet? How? So they're coming out and they're moving all the power lines. Mine are all underground, but the ones across the street. But how do you, I know trucks, how? And these are not their drivers. These are truck drivers. So when they say, well, we're going to fire our truck drivers if they use your road, they can't tell all these truck drivers that are bringing the stuff, those aren't their truck drivers. See, so it's like, well, you're saying one thing and doing another. You can't control these truck drivers.
So your concern is that no matter what ends up happening, they're still going to use First Avenue, or you're offering that up as that should be something that should be improved?
No, the planning committee's already said they are not allowed to use First Avenue.
Okay.
They cannot go down First Avenue and hit Hazeldale and go out. What's the light going in there for?
Well, what they actually said was that they can't use First Avenue until First Avenue is improved to handle the truck traffic. And we are working with Project Shakespeare now to see if we can get them to contribute to the improvements necessary to make First Avenue accessible for trucks. It would have to be built to truck standards to be able to accomplish that, but we're having conversations about that now. They're ongoing. We don't have a final resolution yet. I would also point out that any truck that follows the pink route is also going to be going through the Sequoia-Hazeldale intersection, and that stoplight is going to be equally important whether the pink route or the blue route is used. It's either going to stack behind going through so traffic can get out of Fred Meyer's, or it's going to stack at Hazeldale turning right so that the traffic can get off of Sequoia. So either way, the stoplight is going to be critical to the free flow of traffic through that intersection. And it doesn't matter which direction the trucks are going, they have to go through that intersection.
So, but they're going to come off 99 down Haynes, hit First, and come in that way. So that's what you're saying. So if you're going to make that all industrial, that whole road, and that's Clackamas County. Clackamas County said they can't drive on their road.
They're not going to come off Haynes. Clackamas County has already said
they do now, sir. They do now. 800 vehicles and trucks pass my driveway every day, and that actually it's over 800 because I can't. They did not. They did not do a traffic study at Walnut. I'm the only one, because they're going to send 800-something trucks out my driveway. They did not do a study at the end of Walnut, my end. That makes no sense.
All I can say is that we're working with them to improve the blue section so that it meets the standards that the Planning Commission has identified as acceptable for truck traffic to use First Avenue as a route to get to Sequoia.
So we're trying to make it easier for them to go past her house?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying.
That's what I'm hearing.
Sorry. Yes.
Well,
yes, they are.
They're going by her house no matter what.
Okay. And there's a reason why they can't come out Sequoia Parkway end? I haven't been watching the Planning Commission meetings, so I'll be honest, because I try to stay away from the hot baloney, so.
The county who controlled the road at the time, and the city who controls this road that is in blue that they can't go down right now, have identified the traffic pattern and approved the specific traffic pattern. And that happened at the Planning Commission. And that traffic pattern and the condition was that the Project Shakespeare had to make a left turn on First Avenue and another left turn on South Walnut until First Avenue was improved to Hazeldale, to a truck standard. That was the decision that was made. And so it doesn't matter, based on the actions of the Planning Commission and approval of the county for use of First Avenue, those trucks are going to go past that house no matter what.
No, now 800 and something are gonna go do a UE, so I get the exhaust coming and I get the exhaust going. Literally, it is literally in front of my property.
Unless we're able to improve First Avenue, and then they'll just be driving past your house.
No, they gotta come and go from their building, so you're not understanding.
I understand. I
You're
know
not-
how traffic.
So the Clackamas County is not letting them have any driveways now on Malino.
That's correct.
Okay?
Correct.
So now, that was their exit. Now they put their entrance and exit at my front door. Because the county won't let them, and the county took away one of their driveways on First Avenue. Now they can only have vehicles into their parking lot and the truck entrance and exit at my front door.
That's correct.
And they're gonna come down Hines because it is not designated, not a trucking, and they all do now. From our school buses to every cement truck and everybody that's building the little, in the industrial park there, every one of those trucks go by.
And I would point out to the council that this city has no jurisdiction over Haynes Road.
Right. Yes. True. But you have no jurisdiction on my side of the road where, and only on your side where you've just sent 840 trucks or more, because they're saying they're open 24 hours a day. They're gonna go in front of, I mean, do a U-turn until who fixes the road? When you're gonna put the light in, who's gonna, that's all I'm saying. It makes no sense to send, literally, all those trucks, they cannot go down First Avenue to Hazeldale to get out. They have to turn.
No, I understand your frustration, I do. And I wish I had a better answer for you right now on what.
Take them out at the end. It's so simple. It's ridiculously simple to take them right out the other end of Walnut on Sequoia. Truck drivers hate to make turns.
I understand that, but at the same
Easy.
time, though, that what was proposed to the Planning Commission was not that option, and that's what the Planning Commission approved. And so there's nothing, at this point, with the appeal process being closed, and nobody making an appeal on this project.
Who has $2,000 to drop for that? I would have done it in a heartbeat if I wasn't taking care of my father. So,
I understand that. I'm sorry about that.
okay, no, don't be sorry. But I'm not understanding how any of this works. I'm new to all this. So I thought you had a decision on telling some people that are, this company, I'm not trying to stop it, but do you have any idea the impact that's going to put on this community and the ins and outs? Let alone, I'm just one person. Yeah, you can get rid of me, but this entire town. This is a huge project that runs 24 hours a day in front of my home. That matters to me. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
And I'm not going to stop coming because you can do something about it. And you can tell them they need to go out the other end of Walnut and use the industrial parkway that you built for that parkway. You didn't build First Street or anything for that. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, did you have a question or no?
That's right.
Okay. Moving into mayor's business, just a couple of things. Park Advisory Board, Chair Treebwasser pretty much hit on everything that was on the agenda there. The one piece I'll add is that there was, we did have somebody from the State Park Department come regarding Molalla River State Park. John Mullen, he came and there was conversation about dog park and fencing there on the state park piece, and he did inform the Park Advisory Board the state is gearing up to do a master planning of that park in the near future, seeing as how nothing has been touched or done on that park since it was put in the early 70s. So that is something that they are going to be working on, and if that's something that we're interested in being involved in and having participation in, and what that could look like, or we have an interest in having conversation on implementing the dog park piece there, that is a conversation that we can have with them. Do you have a question? Yes.
Well, just, if you don't have it, can I get you the Mount Hood Territory Water Tourism Plan that said that one of the most needed things was camping at Molalla River State Park, if we're going to be part of their master planning process or whatever? Do you have that?
I believe I do. If I don't, I will ask them for it, because I believe that is on their radar based on some of the preliminary conversations.
So it's like camping and the boat ramp were the two things that was geographically, not just for Camby, but if someone's trying to navigate the waterways, that's where in Molalla River State Park is, nothing else exists, so.
Well, and I was having conversation with actually the state, one of the people involved in choosing the Molalla State Park way back in the day. And so they pretty much confirmed me that it hasn't been touched since they put it in. So those are pieces that we definitely would need to make sure are on their radar to take care of. So Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, I'm going to let Councilor Hensley touch on that, because I was not there. I was at the school board meeting that evening, so I couldn't be at both places at the same time. And then Tuesday evening was I have in my notes, the listening party for the Camby Ferry, but it was the Board of County Commissioners did a listening session to the community about ideas on how to maintain the Camby Ferry and potential pieces for operations as well. And I sent you guys all a copy of the letter that I sent on to them, which is basically just a recap of our notes from February 6th regarding that as well. So they have that, and hopefully we'll be working with them on, unfortunately, I believe it's not going to be one piece. It's going to have to be a number of things to keep the ferry running. I don't know, I'll let Councilor Varwig and Councilor Hensley add to that if they want during their reports. But that's where that is on that. So that's all I have for this evening. So we'll start with council reports. Councilor Height.
Yeah, I missed the Planning Commission meeting last week, so I can get a summary and report next meeting, but I don't have anything.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councilor Parker.
Nothing here.
Okay. Councilor Hensley.
Okay, well, I do have a few things. I will start with Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. We heard a VRF, vehicle registration fee update. Chair Bernard felt that their meeting on the 7th of February, he quoted, went well. In my opinion, only 8 people came and spoke, so I think some more community participation is in need there.
How many?
Only 8 people spoke on the VRF piece. So they are having their Board of County Commissioners meets on Thursday mornings, but once a month they meet in the evening. So the next opportunity for input, and they are having a public hearing on the VRF on the 21st, which is tomorrow night, 6 p.m. And it's at the Public Services building there on Red Soils, over by Kane Road in the county offices there. The proposal is an additional $30 per year added to the vehicle registration fee, which sounds like a small amount, but until you kind of break it down and realize it's $60 every time you go in. So instead of $112, you're going to be paying $172, which is a 55% increase. And so I think people should weigh in on that. So go and give your thoughts tomorrow evening at the county offices. Then the next piece was the C4 legislative agenda. The main pieces were 205 funding. They're trying to find a solution for the I-205 bottleneck, and so they're requesting that it become a 2019 priority in the session. And secondly, that the future, the Metro 2020 Regional Transportation Investment. They sent a letter to Metro, the Board of County Commissioners did, to identify 8 corridors in our county that are needing solutions. So they're requesting the Metro pay attention to some of those corridors in their investment plan. And I gave you a full packet, and all the handouts from the meeting is right there for you. Yes. And Traffic Safety Commission, there were concerns regarding bicycles not stopping at intersections. So there's some talk about maybe that being their next public service announcement that they did, kind of like the texting and walking across the crosswalk project they did, because they're really concerned that the bicycles are just going and not being cognizant of the traffic around them, vice versa. We need to peacefully coexist, bicycles and cars. Also, parking was an issue. Specifically, they wanted to talk about North 4th and Knott, where the parking is causing some safety concerns. So actually, Jerry Nelsing was going to go out and look at that and see if there needs some striping or something that's needed there. So we'll hear back next time on what his thoughts are on that. And lastly, with the Traffic Safety Commission, they're looking at putting a crosswalk in on Sequoia Parkway? No, Berg Parkway. Get those two mixed up. Berg Parkway, from basically from Ace Hardware to the Tide restaurant. And the main concern is because of the onslaught of teenagers that go just walking from driveway to driveway to get from the high school to Dutch Bros. And they're not going down to the crosswalk, and they're just randomly crossing the road and causing some traffic issues. So they're actually working with the high school, Principal Dentz is on board with trying to kind of do PSA stuff and get the teens to go where they should be. But they are looking at putting a crosswalk in. So then it's like right there, and they don't have to go down to, the corner at the light on 99. So they're working on that, and Jerry assures us that that's far enough from 99 that ODOT will be fine with it. So that's kind of the project they're looking at. I attended, most of us did, the State of the City address with the Small Business Showcase, and I just wanted to comment that good job for you, by the way, but also the Chamber for getting involved in doing that evening thing with the Small Business Showcase. I thought it was a pretty cool format, and I hope they continue it that way. And finally, I did attend with Councilor Varwig the Camby Ferry listening session last night, or Tuesday night. And I guess it was last night, wasn't it? It's been a week. Sorry, I've got a lot going on. But yes, there were many sentiments that we had here on the dais were repeated in the community members as well. The general feeling in the room, I'll report, I think that the general feeling was that the community would like to save the ferry if possible, and they really want the county to look at cost-reducing measures and such. There were a few naysayers, but I think the majority of the people that spoke in favor. There was the point of a possible taxing district for the ferry. When I spoke, I did actually kind of say some of the things that were on our letter, not realizing that you had sent that letter ahead of time, but also that if they were going to consider a taxing district, that it would be more palatable to the voters if they could show that they'd done everything they could to reduce that and come to the voters with less than a $400,000 gap. So that, I think, concludes my report. Thank you.
Two things regarding Traffic Safety Committee and for Councilor Parker. Is there an opportunity for the Traffic Safety Committee and the Bike and Peg Group to work on these traffic safety concerns?
With the bicycles?
Yes.
I think that would be great if we could have a couple of members maybe attend and vice versa. They could work together on the PSA.
I think that'd be great. And then regarding the crosswalk there at Safeway, sorry, it's really to go to Dutch Brothers. That is going to be one big crosswalk because
I don't think they plan on like 20 wide going across at the same time.
No, but I've been down there where the high school kids are playing Frogger, trying to cross there.
That's what we're trying to avoid.
I know, but I think it's a path of least resistance, and so it's a straight line across the road versus walking down to the cross.
That's why they're thinking from Ace to the Thai restaurant might be palatable to them.
That's where they cross anyway.
That is where they cross.
It's already a sidewalk, crosswalk.
So it basically makes it more visible to the driver that, hey, there could potentially be, rather than a random teen darting across the road.
And maybe corrals them into
a little bit.
one.
Well, if we can corral them, because, yeah,
It's kind of like herding cats, but we're trying.
Well, I'm glad that they're looking at it, and I would maybe ask that we look at also the flashing crosswalk sign as an added feature there. I don't know.
I can bring it up.
That might
Yeah,
be-
flashing sign.
So, I'm surprised that we haven't had.
Just don't say it.
I know. We've not had fun activities there, but, okay, I'm glad it's being looked at. Thank you. Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, likewise attended the State of the City address. Good job, and our thanks to Cuts Force and the Chamber of Commerce for hosting that. For Camby Utility, for tonight, just wanted to mention that as part of their water master plan, they've begun some discussions with Tualatin Valley Water District to look at if there's maybe some joint regional opportunities there for a water source. So stay tuned on that. Like I say, they just started talking with them, and we'll hear more later in the year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilor Berwick.
Yes, sir. I also attended the State of the City. One of the things that I thought was so great about it, besides the address itself, was seeing the business community networking with each other, as well as with our community. So that was great. I know that there are some business relationships that were formed at that event, so that's a good thing. Attended the Canby Ferry meeting last night, and you guys said everything that I could say, so I won't say anything more on that. Fire board is next week, so I don't have anything to report on that, but library, I have some really exciting stuff about the library. They met last night. There's a new teen advisory council, which I think is fantastic. 16 teens attended the first advisory council, and their purpose is to represent a positive teen force in the library, to encourage teens to become lifelong library users and promote teen programs and participation by assisting in the development and implementation of programming, collections, and volunteerism. So that's great. I just got this evening the numbers of teens that have been using the library, and over the last 2 years, it's increased 527%. So that's awesome. So great job, teenagers, great job, library. It's fantastic to see the teens being involved. So that's all I'll say about the library, but they're doing wonderful.
527%?
527% increase over the last 2 years in teens using the library. So that's something to be very, very proud of.
Yeah, that goes back again, our conversation last week, and having to allocate additional funds to the library, because that would be an area that would definitely be impacted. And so to hear those numbers, and I know it's been the library board, I know it's been the Friends of the Library that have put a tremendous amount of resources into the teens area at the library, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that also that's a great number, a really great number, but I'll also say the numbers are, in the month of January, there were 468 adults that attended 28 different programs, 163 teens attending 17 programs, and 295 toddlers attending story time. So that was just the month of January alone. So
that's a lot of toddlers.
That's a lot of toddlers.
The Wednesday teen events have been pretty popular. My son goes to those, and he says a number of kids are there and they have a good time.
They're using
were
that
there.
teen
They're doing
room. They're
karaoke
using the
tonight.
teen room. Yeah.
There's one kid singing a song in a Donald Duck voice. That was quite entertaining to. I just went to go peek at my son, make sure he was still where he's supposed to be, right? Yeah, and there was this guy singing a song in a Donald Duck voice. They were having a good time. So it was fun to see all them in there being very active.
I love it.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Barwick. Councilor Spoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. CTV5 didn't have a quorum yesterday, but I did sit and talk with them for a little bit since some of us were there. And I know that I think they've made pretty good strides in making sure that our meetings are running smoothly on TV, on Direct Link and Wave, and on YouTube. However, I will say, no one monitors all of them because no one has access to all of them. So if you are trying to watch city meetings in one of those fashions and you're having trouble with it, reach out to me or CTV5 and let us know so that we can try and correct it. Southwest Neighborhood Association, there's been some discussion about some trees that have come down. There's been a lot of it. I'm going to reach out to Jackie again after the meeting, but I did talk to Rick before our meeting now, and if you're in the Southwest Neighborhood Association and you've been worried about the trees, it seems to me that they were on private property and we can't control them, but reach out to me via the Facebook page or my email or whatever and let me know if you have more questions about it. I think that there was some discussion about some trees came down and the neighborhood thought that the developer had agreed to not take the trees down, but correct me if I'm wrong. But it sounds like the trees that they said they weren't going to take down were in the right of way, and the ones that came down were not the ones in question. Did I explain it correctly?
Well, what the developer actually said was that if it was practical to leave the trees that were on the private property, that they would make an attempt to leave the trees, but there was no absolute assurance that they were going to save all the trees.
Sure.
And because the trees in question were all on private property, the city has no jurisdiction over those trees. Our jurisdiction is with street trees and trees within the city's right-of-way.
Yeah. Thank you, Rick, for clearing that up. I did not do a good job of explaining it. But I think it does speak to a general consensus that something gets approved and maybe residents or neighbors are concerned about what happens next, and we don't have control over all of it. But it's good that they're keeping the line of communication open, and if you have more questions about it, reach out to me, and I'll be happy to connect you or get more answers if there are more answers. State of the City was great. Again, thanks to Kyle for doing such a good job putting it on. I really wanted to mention to you that I think it's really good, this partnership that makes these meetings or talks more accessible to the general community, because in the past they've mostly been done during chamber lunch. And I know last year you did do an evening meeting here. It wasn't super well attended, probably because many people came to the chamber lunch or whatever, but I really thought that the attendance was great for an evening, and it was nice to see a lot of people there that couldn't attend the luncheon. So I really appreciate that you worked in that partnership with them, and then we got to see some Camby businesses at the same time. Willamette Falls Heritage Area Coalition. Not a lot is happening right there as we navigate the complicated nuance of the federal government. However, I will say that a bill has been entered at the House, I think it's at the House, to strengthen kind of the heritage areas. And if that passes, that'll be a really great opportunity as we go through the process of becoming a national heritage area ourselves and continuing to do that. And I think there will be a lot of benefits for Camby. So I'm tracking that to see how that goes. And then finally, I've been attending the First Thursday meetings. There have been 2 of them for downtown business owners, and coming up, so we're moving from First Friday to First Thursday, if you didn't know. I don't know that it's been like formally announced, but we've had a couple of meetings about it, in part because people are kind of already coming downtown on Fridays. So our hope is to attract people that weren't coming down on Thursdays, because if you're going out on Friday, you might already be going out on Friday, but also because Fridays tend to conflict with other events. So we're hoping that this gives people another opportunity to come downtown that doesn't conflict with as many events. But coming up March 1st is Charmed with Camby. I'm really excited about this. A number of businesses downtown are participating. You'll see some stuff. There's a Facebook page for it. I think you'll see some announcements. But a few businesses got together, and you can basically buy a charm bracelet, and I think the cost is $30. I'm not participating in it, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was $30, and you get this bracelet and kind of a coupon book or a passport book, basically, and you go to a number of area businesses that then you collect the charms at for that $30. And all the proceeds go to the Camby Historical Society. And so if they sell out, they'll raise over $3,000 for the Camby Historical Society. But it's a really great kind of unique take on visiting downtown, on Camby area businesses. I'm not even sure that all of them are downtown because I don't have the list yet of who's participating. But keep an eye out for that. I know for sure you can buy your bracelet at Camby Historical Society, at Retro Revival, at the Book Nook, and there are other businesses, and I'm sorry I don't have them all memorized, but keep an eye out for it. I believe it starts March 1st, so that's kind of a cool thing to participate in, and each business has a charm unique to them. So I saw they posted a sneak peek of one today, and it was a salon, and it was a pair of scissors. So cool. It's really cute, and it's kind of a fun way to engage the community and with the businesses in Camby. So keep an eye out for that. And then what I think you'll see out of the First Thursdays is we've scheduled a year of themed First Thursdays. Anything from like a busking night, and busking, if you don't know, is when musicians play on the street, but in front of businesses. Cool. So a music, and then an art night, wine night, a kind of I don't want to say fitness theme tonight because I'm not super into fitness, but hopefully getting some more active activities on the streets and really getting people walking around Canby and having a whole experience, and inviting non-downtown businesses into downtown to participate in some capacity. So I'm really excited about the changes and the way it engages our community with our downtown core and the businesses that are and aren't there.
I'm not sure I needed another reason to buy jewelry, but thank you.
I know. I was
I'm going to have to get my bracelet.
I don't even wear bracelets, but I was already like, what's the first day I can buy one? Because I like to collect things. Everything's a game to me. So I'm excited to check them all off the list.
Great. Thank you. We'll move into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the annual liquor license renewals, the appointment of Haviland Eric to the Heritage and Landmark Commission for a term to end on June 30th, 2021, and the reappointment of Todd Wagner to the Canby Utility Board for a term to end on February 28th, 2022. And I want to point out that Miss Eric is our newest high school student on a city board, and she is here tonight.
Wonderful.
And needs a picture with you.
I think we will put her on the spot here shortly.
I'll second. I have a question before the vote. I just was noticing on the liquor store license renewals, or the liquor license renewals, that Cascade Pizza is listed, and aren't they out of business? Is this Admo's under the wrong name, or what happened here?
That list comes from the OLCC, so they hadn't updated their list.
Okay, I was just curious. That was all. Good catch.
So a motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which includes the annual liquor license renewals, appointment of Haviland Eric to the Heritage and Landmark Commission for a term to end on June 30th, 2021, and the reappointment of Todd Wagner to the Canby Utility Board for a term to end on February 28th, 2022. Any discussion or question?
I already had my question.
Okay, I was just checking. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Great. Consent agenda motion passes 6-0. And before we move on, Mr. Crawford, would you like to, as chair of our Heritage and Landmark Commission, like to come up with our latest addition to of our high school students to our boards and introduce your student to your board? And we're going to put Haviland on the spot and have her tell us all about the fun things she's got going on.
Have a seat here. So I'm very pleased on behalf of the Heritage and Landmarks Commission to introduce our latest member. Thank you for your vote to confirm this. Haviland Eric is a sophomore at Canby High School. She is here this evening with her parents. I'd like for her to tell you a little bit about herself, but I want to just slip in one little detail here, unrelated to the business of our commission. Haviland will be representing our community and furthermore the United States at a worldwide powerlifting event this June to be held in Sweden. So be careful what you say around her. She may just, have the potential to body slam any of us in the room. But okay, so we can have a little fun. One thing I do just want to recognize, though, throughout my career as a middle school teacher, I would tell my students, you never know from where the next great idea will come. Perhaps it will come from one of you. And I would convince my students that you don't have to be an adult to have a great idea. With this in mind, we look forward to Haviland being an active participant of our commission, and we encourage her to bring forward her great ideas to benefit not only the commission, but to benefit the city of Canby as a whole. And so we certainly welcome her to our commission. Haviland, this is your opportunity.
Yes, Haviland, so you want to introduce your parents since they've sat through a very lengthy intro to get here? And
Yes, sir. That is my dad in the purple shirt over there.
Nice to meet you.
Doug
Thank you.
Eric. And my mom right next to him, Christine Eric. They're
Christine.
both very fantastic parents. Get me very far in life, but yeah, so. Anyways, I'm Javi. Javi Eric is my Javi is my nickname. Basically my whole powerlifting, as far as that goes, I just gone on Team USA for the powerlifting. and that's always been my life goal. It's just, I thought it was so cool that, to be up there and hold the American flag and have the national anthem playing. That's always been my goal, to stand up there and represent Canby, represent the United States. And I'm super stoked for that opportunity. But as far as high school goes, I try to be a 4.0 student. And right now, oh boy, I'm on, oh gosh, I don't know. I'm not really sure what I'm trying to say. I apologize for this.
This would be a good time to tell them that history was one of your favorite topics or subjects at school or something.
Oh yes, history. Yes, history is, that's a good subject. Definitely very interesting to know and learn from, past. History is a good subject. I like history.
Well, we are very pleased to have, I think you make the 4th high school student we've had on a city board or committee, and so we are excited that we're seeing more of that happening, and so we're really excited to have you on this commission. I know Tony's excited as well, and he'll do great things, continue the great work that the commission has done. I would love for us to get a picture with you, one, because you're going to Sweden to compete, and it's always fun for us to know famous people, so
It's 2013.
Thank you.
Tracy. Actually, Tracy, get in front.
Which one are you talking to?
This one. And move a little toward Greg. All 3 of you in front. Away from those tall people. Let me get just a bit closer. Thank you.
Good luck to, yes. Now, I think I know I'm not on mic. You need to get GoFundMe information since you're on camera. Yes.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Can I ask one more coaching
Yes.
about what I do?
Come on up.
Great from Camby podcasted a full thing of her today. And posted that on Camby now. Also, thank you for the fundraiser we're trying to do to get her this evening. I don't know if any of you were on Camby podcasted.
I think we all are.
Everyone.
So he did a real nice piece on her today, and it's featured on there with all sorts of links and information and YouTube videos. So we're really hoping that the community would see that and maybe help us get Abby to Sweden to represent Camby in the United States. I mean, this is such an ultimate dream goal, so.
Yeah, so just for the viewing audience at home, so Haviland Eric has got a GoFundMe account, and there's a Camby Now podcast with an interview and telling the whole story that she's doing some fundraising to get to Sweden and represent Camby, represent Oregon, represent the United States. You're an impressive young lady, and you're doing great things, and keep it up, and we're very glad and very fortunate to have you not only in one of our committees, but to be living here in Camby. So thank you for all that you're doing, and know that we will keep us posted. June is when you go?
June, yeah.
Okay, so I'm sure there'll be the ability to watch on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, yes?
Yes.
All right.
I'm kind of the PR manager, so I do what I can.
Okay. Well, keep us in the loop, because one of the sports I enjoy watching in the Olympics is the powerlifting.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and I always have to either stay up in the middle of the night to watch it or catch it on YouTube. So, no, I'll definitely be watching. So we wish you the best of luck, and
She has some very impressive numbers.
yes, she does. Yes. So, yes, Mr. Crawford.
Mr. Mayor, would this be an appropriate time to have a round of applause for
Oh, absolutely.
guys very much.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Now that we have 4 high school students that are on various advisory committees, could we maybe behind the scenes take under consideration having them create their own youth advisory group that they could meet independently and converse and talk, and we can kind of maybe have one of them be more representative to us instead of involved in individual groups?
So that is something that's been on my to-do list to do.
Happy Valley has a good one.
Yeah, I know Happy Valley does one. I know Estacada does one. It's just a matter of balancing workload. So, get through the transition of the new city manager, and that, hopefully will be something that we can look at getting accomplished. But that is, it is something that I think would be great to eventually do.
It's kind of happening organically anyway, and we may as well seal the deal on it.
There's only 2 currently. There's 2 former high school students. They're now older. They're like in college, just FYI.
We have library, historic landmark.
That's it
That's
currently.
it. The other 2, yes.
Camby area transit in the past.
Yeah.
But good idea, Sarah.
Great. All right, we'll move into, turn the page. Resolutions and ordinances. Kim.
The first item you have is Resolution 1304. This is adopting Camby Area Transit's 2019 Asset Maintenance Plan for Public Transit Fleet and Facilities.
Hi, Julie. Good evening.
Hi.
Thank you for hanging out this evening.
You're welcome. I'm up past my bedtime. Once again, I'm here with a plan for meeting requirements that come to us because we operate federally funded public transportation service. The first resolution, 1304, which is an asset maintenance plan for the transit fleet and federally funded facilities. The plan in your packet was reviewed by staff and ODOT's Rail and Public Transit Division for accuracy and compliance. It should be noted that we have had a transit vehicle maintenance plan for many years. In the past, the plan didn't require formal adoption by the council, but changes in the federal regulations now make it so that we have to have the fleet plan and the maintenance plan. Also, our federally funded facility is the Camby Transit Center. The other facility where the bus yard is and they are not federally funded. So that's why that's the only one that's listed in the plan. So your approval of this document will be in compliance with the most recent federal regulations. And I just wanted to mention that since the document was put in your packet, if you were reading it early, it's been updated. The only edits worth mentioning are that one of the years of the vehicle was wrong and I changed it to the correct year. And then I mistakenly had put 3,000 miles on both the gas and diesel cutaway inspection checklists. And Robert informed me that it should be 4,000 miles. So that's been corrected.
Okay.
And those are in the exhibit, I think, that you have access to.
Great. Any questions for Julie? No? It's a great report. Thank you, Julie. Motion, please.
I move that we adopt Resolution 1304, adopting Camby Area Transit's 2019 Asset Maintenance Plan for Public Transit Fleet and Facilities.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Height and seconded by Councilor Varwig to approve Resolution 1304, adopting Camby Area Transit's 2019 Asset Maintenance Plan for Public Transit Fleet and Facilities. Any further questions or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Passes 6-0.
The next item is Resolution 1309. This is adopting ODOT's Tier 2 Transit Asset Management Group Plan and Performance Measures.
This also brings us into compliance with federal regulations. This is new federal regulation that requires all 5311 recipients, which we are recipients of $5311, to establish and maintain a transit asset management plan, commonly referred to as a TAM plan. And TAM plan requirements include state of good repair standards, and other subrecipient requirements that are best managed at a state level for the smaller providers. So CAT, along with 52 other small transit providers across the state, are adopting the state's TAM plan. These regulations are designed with large transit operations in mind, and that's why the states are allowed to develop group plans.
Julie, can you explain the 5311 funds?
It's for rural programs. It's a formula fund that we receive every year, just under $300,000 a year annually for operating.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt Resolution 1309 and a resolution adopting ODOT's Tier 2 Transit Asset Management Group Plan and Performance Measures.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve Resolution 1309, adopting ODOT's Tier 2 Transit Asset Management Group Plan and Performance Measures. Any further discussion or comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 6-0.
The next item you have is before you for second reading. This is Ordinance 1503, adopting a franchise agreement with Extent Systems Incorporated, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Camby, Oregon.
Great.
And just as a quick recap, this is for second reading. This came to you last time, and the explanation is the same, which is this is a franchise agreement for a telecommunications operator who wants to come here. This is the same franchise agreement that we offer anybody who wants to operate within our public rights of way. The deal here is that they are expected to come back and try to make a pitch to do some above ground 5G microcells, but they have to come to you and they have to ask for that, and that's what part of this agreement is. So this is the first step for them. I believe it'll take effect 30 days from now, so then I assume the conversations will start again, what that additional agreement will look like, and whether or not you guys will permit that at that time.
Great. Thank you for that recap, Joe. Appreciate it. Anybody have any questions or clarifications on this?
No, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve Ordinance 1503, adopting a franchise agreement with Extenet Systems Incorporated, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Camby, Oregon.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Spoon, seconded by Councilor Height to approve Ordinance 1503, adopting a franchise agreement with Extenet Systems Incorporated, a non-exclusive franchise to construct, operate, and maintain a telecommunications network and provide telecommunications services within the city of Camby, Oregon. Any further discussion? No. Roll call vote.
Councilor Height?
Aye.
Councilor Parker?
Aye.
Councilor Hensley?
Aye.
Councilor Dale?
Aye.
Councilor Barwig?
Aye.
Councilor Spoon?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Kim. Next, new business is approving the contract with Peckman and McKinney for city administrator recruitment. So last meeting, the city council did a work session looking at proposals that came in for the companies that were going to conduct the search, help us conduct the search for replacing, not that we can, our current city administrator who has announced his retirement, and the company that we've decided to move forward with and have put hopefully under contract after this is the Peckman and McKinney group to help us with recruiting. All in all, I think the choice has been very good. Feedback that we got regarding this company has been outstanding. We felt that this particular company falls within the cost parameters that we have, and then also their breadth of recruiting experience in various positions for city administrators to other city staff positions as well as county staff. So overall, I think it's a great choice for us to use them. And so we officially need to approve this contract and that they will conduct it going forward. So there's any questions or comments from the council regarding this piece?
Once we approve this, the next step is at the March meeting, our first meeting in March. We have a condensed agenda because we'll be meeting with the company to, providing we approve it tonight, meeting with them to discuss job description and process moving forward and timelines. So that's what's coming up.
Well, and just to reiterate, because I know you were asking out of a workshop where you guys observed 5 different firms' proposals, and this one seemed to be the one that you directed staff. Our Assistant City Administrator, Amanda Zeiber, then went and, got their contract, but also looked into, I know she had announced to you that she was going to look into their references. And then apparently she even went above and beyond and called a few more people that she knew they had worked with, and it came back really great reviews. So I think it's good for you guys to hear that not only were your marching orders followed, but that it came back, that this seems to be a good choice. So you guys making it your first choice was kind of, I think, a good idea. This particular group, if you go forward with this, wants to be here on March 6th and getting the wheels going right away. So it sounds like if you guys are of the mind that you're happy with the performance of Amanda Zeiber and going with this firm, that signing this today will mean they'll be here on March 6th, hitting the ground running.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to point out too that we've already received a homework assignment in our email, and the quality of getting going early will depend on us having really thought through the questions they're asking and being ready to go.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Mayor, as much as it is to my chagrin we even have to make this motion, I move that we approve the contract with Peckman McKinney for a city administrator recruitment.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Council President Dale to approve the contract with Peckman and McKinney for the administrative recruitment process. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 6-0. City Administrator business and staff reports. Nothing this evening. Thank you, sir. Second opportunity for citizen input. If anyone would like to address the council on anything from this evening. Seeing none. Action review.
You have approved the splash pad location for Maple Street Park, approved the consent agenda. You've adopted resolutions 1304 and 1309 and ordinance 1503, and you've approved the contract with Peckman and McKinney.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Joe, we're not having an executive session this evening.
No.
Before I adjourn, to let everyone know that we will continue the festivities this evening as we roll into our Camby Urban Renewal Agency special meeting after this one is adjourned, so stay tuned for that. If there's nothing else, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning and going into the Urban Renewal Agency meeting?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, our regular meeting is adjourned, and we'll move into the Urban Renewal Agency meeting.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. I open the Camby Urban Renewal Agency special meeting of February 20th, 2019 at 9 o'clock, straight up. With the consent of the commission, I'd like to rely on our opening ceremonies from the city council meeting and move right on. Thank you. First up is selection of URA chair for this term of 2 years.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Tim Dale for reprising his role as URA chair.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hensley, seconded by Commissioner Varwig, to nominate Tim Dale for chair of the Urban Renewal Agency for the next term. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all those in favor of Tim Dale serving as URA chair for the next term, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries 7-0. Thank you very much for the confidence. I appreciate it greatly. Thank you. Next up, nominations for vice chair.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Brian Hodson to retain his role as vice chair.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hensley, seconded by Commissioner Varwig, to nominate Brian Hodson as vice chair of the Urban Renewal Agency for the next term. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none. All those in favor of Brian Hodson serving as vice chair for the next term, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And that carries 7-0. All right, next up we have an opportunity for citizen input before the Camby Urban Renewal Agency. Do we have any citizens that would like to offer input? And seeing none, we'll move on to community announcements. Kim or Rick? Anything? Nothing? All right. Next up, we have the consent agenda, which consists of the minutes of the June 30th, 2018 URA meeting. They were emailed out to you separately by Kim. Do you have any additions, corrections for those? Anyone? No? Then we'll need a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda, the minutes from the June 20th, 2018 URA meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Height, seconded by Vice Chair Hodson to accept the consent agenda, which is just the minutes of the June 20th, 2018 URA meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And that carries 7-0. Next up, we have resolutions and ordinances. Kim, URR 1901.
The first item you have is URR 19001. This is approving an agreement with Union Pacific Railroad for site and design review.
Mr. Administrator.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dale. As a part of their review criteria, Union Pacific Railroad now requires that the jurisdictions requesting a quiet zone pay in the form of reimbursement for the cost of their services. The estimated cost that has been provided to us with the caveat that the number could go higher depending on the scope of the review, is currently $25,000 per intersection to be reviewed, or a total of $75,000. My request of you today is, or this evening, is that you approve the agreement with Union Pacific Railroad for site and design review, with an acknowledgement that the $75,000 number is an estimate only, will be charged for actual time, and nothing beyond that, they assure us. But that number could go beyond 75,000, but certainly I don't believe above 100,000. If we choose not to approve this agreement, then Union Pacific Railroad would set our project aside and would not review it, which could be a problem.
So Rick, there's been a lot of action on social media of an unnamed group this week. Would it be fair to say, in recap, one of the big questions is, why do we have to pay them? And the answer is, it's our initiative, it's our project. Yes, it's their railroad, but they're in the driver's seat in terms of assessing whether we can achieve a quiet zone. They assess whether the improvements meet federal regulations, and we're really asking them to do an engineering study.
Yeah, the Federal Rail Authority, UP Railroad, and the state ODOT rail division all have review responsibilities. In the last couple of years, Union Pacific Railroad has significantly decreased the administrative staff that they have on board to the tune, I believe, of about 30%. And so while in the past they have been willing to provide the services of perform the diagnostic, which has already been done on our project several weeks ago, and then all of the other services necessary to complete the review and provide any comments to the Federal Rail Authority and to ODOT Rail Division. Absent this agreement, they could choose to not look at it at all.
Right.
Or they could choose to set it aside for 2 years, or they could choose to not make it a priority, or, we don't know what the outcome would be, but we do have an assurance that with the approval of this reimbursement agreement, that they will continue to provide service to us. I think this is a critical step if we are serious about successfully bringing a quiet zone to our downtown Camby community.
I think it's fair to say, would you agree that it's fair to say without this step, the project goes nowhere?
I don't believe it will. I honestly don't believe it will.
Any other questions, comments?
No, but I'll just add to that, because I saw some additional comments on social media, so just to clarify that said in other communities, they didn't have to do this or whatever, but this is a relatively new change. A few years ago, they didn't necessarily require this. Do I recall that correctly from earlier? Yeah.
3 years ago, when I think it was 2015, when we last attempted to qualify a quiet zone in our community, the Union Pacific Railroad provided these diagnostic services and reviews at no charge. There's still a school of thought that they would, if we completely ignore their request for payment, that they would provide those services. However, I'm not willing to recommend to you that we risk this project and have the project go forward with only Federal Rail Authority and ODOT's comments on the project. I think Union Pacific Railroad is certainly the most powerful of the three agencies, and I would feel very uncomfortable not having them actively engaged in the review process for our project. I don't think the project would get done absent this contract. And I do need to reiterate that we are only reimbursing them for the actual cost of the services that they're providing to us.
Right. Right. Any other discussion? Need a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt Resolution URR 19-001, approving agreement with Union Pacific Railroad for site and design review.
And a second?
I will second that.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hensley, seconded by Vice Chair Hodson, to approve URR 19-001, approving an agreement with Union Pacific Railroad for site and design review. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Carries 7-0. Thank you, Rick. The audience should know that there is an iceberg of labor and passion and hours put forth by Rick to get us to this spot tonight.
Can I ask one more question? Just because I think there was some confusion online that it's not necessarily a study to see if this would reduce noise, or, you know, just to clarify, it's, you know what I mean? There was some confusion about what exactly this was, and I thought it might serve our community if we can explain that it's more for engineering purposes. It's not to figure out if a quiet zone would make it quieter.
No,
right?
it has absolutely nothing to do with that. It is, the study is designed to make a determination that the placement of the quiet zone in our requested locations will make it no more dangerous to cross the railroad than it would had the study not been done. And I haven't read any of the comments, but one of the comments may be that Union Pacific Railroad isn't necessary to seek their approval, but I would tell you, as a public agency that will be named in the lawsuit, if anything happens, that I want Union Pacific Railroad's feedback on this project. I want the Federal Rail Authority's feedback on this project, and I want ODOT's feedback on this project, or I would not feel comfortable recommending it forward to you.
It is true from a risk liability standpoint. This is a cheap insurance policy of doing all of your due diligence and making sure that something's safe before you proceed, because what you're doing is you're removing a layer of safety when you're removing the honking.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you, because I think there was some confusion about what it was and some questions about whether or not it was safe. And I think this kind of answers the question that basically we're paying to make sure it's safe. Right? Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. I think that is a fair summation on the dialogue that was on social media regarding that. So, yeah.
Yeah, in particular, in the absence of horns, it is no less safe.
Exactly.
And in fact, we can argue that it is indeed safer intersection with the improvements that will be made. Fair statement.
Or at least equally safe. The FRA, UP Railroad, and ODOT always look to the measurement criteria, and there's an index that they use with an ultimate determination necessary that it is no less safe without the horns than with the horns.
Yeah, so basically they're going to be looking at the design and the pieces that are being added to each intersection to determine, are we as safe or better? And if not, to make it that way, here's what needs to be added to it.
And what mitigation steps have we taken to address any otherwise increased liability associated with not using the train engine horns. And there are a number of them.
Oh, my goodness.
Thank you for allowing me.
You bet. And we'll still get to hear them on Territorial and Pine.
And you will still get to hear them on Territorial.
But at least we can have a conversation out here. All right. Kim, URR 19002.
This resolution is approving an engineering contract with Curran McLeod Incorporated in the amount of $113,677 for the design and construction phase engineering to signalize the intersection of Sequoia Parkway and Southeast Hazeldale Way, located in the Pioneer Industrial Park in the city of Camby, Oregon.
All right, Rick.
And as indicated, this is for the design and construction phase engineering, the $113,677. The total project cost is estimated at between $500,000 and $600,000. And this is necessary for us to both contract with Curran McLeod to act as civil engineer, and DKS will be acting in the capacity of traffic engineer, working with ODOT to make sure that our signal at Sequoia and Hazeldale is integrated with their signal at Sequoia and Highway 99.
And Rick, the topic came up earlier tonight. Can you remind us that this signalization is not just for one project?
No, that particular intersection is already at capacity. Unfortunately, it was not included in our most recent transportation system plan, so it's not STC eligible, and that's why I'm bringing it to you as an urban renewal project. I feel it's a critical project for this community and will be really important next Black Friday when everybody is shopping at Fred Meyer's, equally as important as the industrial park continues to build out. It's just going to improve safety overall. Frankly, it doesn't matter whether the trucks are rolling out Hazeldale or rolling down Sequoia. That signal is going to assist traffic coming in opposite direction, in competing and conflicting directions.
And you've commented in the past that doing this signalization will, favor might be the wrong word, but ODOT will not be displeased by that as we continue with CPIP development. No,
it's important because, as I said, this intersection is already just approaching that designation, and I'm not as familiar with intersection designations, but a designation where the traffic volumes are so high that it is reaching a point where mitigation measures are going to be required under any circumstances as projects move forward. What we're doing is being proactive and aggressive in getting this signal designed, constructed, and operational prior to Project Shakespeare or any other project in the industrial park coming online, so that those persons, both who are using industrial, have businesses in the industrial park, and those persons that are accessing the businesses in the business communities, commercial retail spaces immediately adjacent to that area, we're not going to be unduly, burdened. That's a good term, unduly burdened.
Any other questions or discussion?
I'd like to make a motion, sir.
Thank you.
I'd like to make the motion to approve URR 19-002, approving an engineering contract with Curran McLeod, Inc. in the amount of $113,677 for the design and construction phase engineering to signalize the intersection of Sequoia Parkway and Southeast Hazeldale Way, located in the Camby Pioneer Industrial Park in the city of Camby, Oregon.
Second.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Hodson, seconded by Commissioner Varwig, to approve URR 19-002, approving an engineering contract with Curran McLeod, Inc. in the amount of $113,677 for the design and construction phase engineering to signalize the intersection of Sequoia Parkway and Southeast Hazeldale Way, located in the Camby Pioneer Industrial Park in the city of Camby, Oregon. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And carries 7-0. Thank you.
If I may, I would make one final comment that we're moving these projects forward fairly rapidly, both of the other projects that you see here, and it's my express desire to have both projects under construction and well in control, with approvals already received on the quiet zone and construction underway and hopefully almost completed on the Sequoia Parkway and Hazeldale signal prior to my retirement, so that as the next person steps in, they're not going to be burdened by these fairly long-term, sophisticated, complicated projects.
Very good.
We appreciate that.
Thank you, Rick.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Administrator, do we have any other business for the agency tonight?
No.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn?
Take one as a move and the other will be a second.
All right, ready? And a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Can't self-second.
You write them down in whatever order you want.
Been
Mr. Chair.
moved by Commissioner Spoon, seconded by Commissioner Hensley to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Good night, Camby.